After an initial spike of global attention and condemnation, we have seen the waning of attention in the last few months. But the release of a 100-page report by the UN Special Rapporteur, which is a pretty harsh condemnation of not only the premeditated murder, but also its cover-up, I think will reinitiate both the criticism and the negative publicity. Ironically, Saudi Arabia was not the only country that received the blunt of criticism here in this report. The Special Rapporteur also urges Turkey to not only erect a statue to freedom of the press in front of the Saudi consulate, but also urges Ankara to release journalists and academics and other citizens who have been jailed for expressing their opinions. So I think in the weeks to come, we will see a greater criticism against Saudi Arabia for its conduct across the board. This could then spill over into a skepticism on the part of global investors as they continue to question the stability and the viability of the Saudi reform initiatives in the years to come.
Aykan, it's interesting what you said about the international community possibly being somewhat reluctant to go all in and put pressure for more sanctions, on the Crown Prince in the aftermath of this report. Is that because of the political environment in the Gulf and the tensions with Iran? There is a feel, perhaps, in the international community to align more closely with Saudi in terms of offsetting Iran's military influence in the region.
Certainly for many of the countries involved, political and security repercussions weigh heavily as they continue to rethink their options vis-à-vis this case. But there are also economic considerations. And I think one of the best examples of how pragmatism can trump human rights concerns is Turkey's conduct. In the early days of the Khashoggi incident, we have seen a very vigilant Turkey criticizing Saudi Arabia very vocally. But then over the last few months, we have seen that Turkish criticism has pretty much disappeared as Turkey began to consider both political and economic consequences. And as Ankara did not want to risk further undermining its bilateral relations with Saudi Arabia. So that could also be the case for many other countries involved in either trade or diplomatic and security relations with Saudi Arabia.